People claim RU58841 has very limited research, but it actually has 18 publicly accessible studies, 9 of which that looked at androgenetic alopecia, and all 9 reporting no systemic side effects. It also had 2 unpublished human trials, one of which that lasted for 6 months, that reported no systemic side effects and comparable results to finasteride. Hello everyone, I'm going to be breaking down every single RU58841 study so you don't have to, and that includes ones that are found behind paywalls. First, I'd like to briefly explain what RU58841 actually is. RU58841 is a non-steroidal anti-androgen which is typically applied topically, and it works to treat androgenetic alopecia by binding to androgen receptors on the scalp and occupying them, preventing DHT from binding and causing miniaturization. A typical misconception about RU58841 is if it goes systemic and binds to androgen receptors in your body, it can have detrimental consequences, which in some ways is true, but what people don't really consider is that it's a silent antagonist of the androgen receptor, meaning it binds to the androgen receptor and doesn't transcribe an effect. In contrast, when DHT binds to the androgen receptor, it transcribes agonism effects, which leads to the eventual death of the hair follicle. So once it binds to the androgen receptor, it doesn't do anything. It's also non-steroidal, so there's no negative feedback to your HPG axis. Something that I actually discovered recently was that the same company that developed RU58841 was developing an anti-androgen that actually increased testosterone levels. Alright, so research first began in 1980 by a French pharmaceutical company, RU58841, with its earliest study coming in 1998, which showed no anti-androgenic activity on sex organs or any effect on testosterone levels. Key outcomes from this study, although limited, were that it could be a useful topical treatment for androgenic alopecia and doesn't cause systemic side effects. The results of this 1994 study were replicated 1 year later on mice and showed a local anti-androgenic activity without systemic side effects again. Next was a 1995 study which compared RU58841 to 2 other anti-androgens, also non-steroidal, RU56187 and RU38882, also on mice. It concluded that RU58841 was the most effective non-steroidal anti-androgen, and it also displayed no systemic side effects once again. Next was a study published in 1995 which compared finasteride to RU58841 on stump-tailed macaques. What's interesting about this study is that the stump-tailed macaque is one of 3 other species that's known to suffer from androgenetic alopecia, making it a suitable biological model for studies on human androgenic alopecia. Finasteride was given 1 milligram per kilogram each day, which is insanely high, and RU58841 was administered at 5%, and after how long was it? After 2 months, RU58841 outperformed finasteride, and it was found to be present in the serum in less concentration the longer it was dosed, meaning the longer you take it, there's less accumulation over time. which was strange, but that's what we saw. And we also saw that there was no decrease in any hormones tested. I think it was DHT, testosterone, and what else was it? Yeah, they also tested for the metabolites of RU58841, and only one of the animals had any accumulation. Our next study was in 1997, again on stump-tailed macaques, and it showed once again how RU58841 can block finasteride from blocking testosterone from binding to the androgen receptor. I believe this study also showed no systemic side effects. The next study is also from 1997 on mice, and it showed that there was no significant serum changes in testosterone and dihydrotestosterone when treated with RU58841. There was another study in 1997 which was unrelated to androgenic alopecia. The next study was also from 1997 and found that RU58841 was actually, it was tested for androgenetic alopecia, and it was found to have a positive action on hair growth. Now, looking at a study titled Evaluation of RU58841 as an anti-androgen in prostate cells and a topical anti-alopecia agent in the bald scalp of stump-tailed macaques, we can learn a couple things about RU58841 and its properties. The first thing we can learn is that RU58841 acted as a silent antagonist of the androgen receptor. We can also learn that its IC50 value was 100 nanomoles. To further investigate RU58841's anti-androgenic properties, they studied it in a topical solution at 5% on stump-tailed macaques. They evaluated body weight, hematology, blood chemistry, and serum levels of testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, and luteinizing hormone. And by the way, the reason they tested luteinizing hormone is it's a gonadotropin, meaning it's the precursor for testosterone synthesis. And they found no changes in these values. Something interesting that the researchers stated was a common feature of pure anti-androgens such as hydroxyflutamide and casodex is their weak binding affinity for the androgen receptor, which is about 50 to 100 times less than that of testosterone, whereas RU58841 exhibits a high and specific binding to the AR equivalent to that of testosterone. And to be honest, that's sort of the entire point of using a topical anti-androgen like RU58841, because you're never going to really be able to outcompete that amount of DHT, because it has such a strong binding affinity for the androgen receptor. I think it's 4 times higher than that of RU58841. So the entire point of it, well, not exactly, but for most people, especially those who have aggressive hair loss, it would be for to outcompete testosterone, because it has an equal binding affinity to testosterone. And that's why it works so synergistically on top of finasteride. By the way, pyrolutamide it supposedly has a binding affinity equal to that of DHT. So you might want to check out. I'm probably going to publish a video comparing RU58841 to pyrolutamide very soon. After this study in 1997, there were quite a few that were unrelated to androgenetic alopecia, except for this one, which was titled The Effect of Topical RU58841 Combined with Minoxidil on Hair Growth in Macaque Androgenetic Alopecia. This study contradicted earlier findings that RU58841 itself stimulates new hair growth, and it showed that after year-long treatments with RU58841, hair growth was similar between RU58841 and Minoxidil alone, and this suggests that RU58841 itself doesn't stimulate any new hair growth, and it just causes existing thin areas to become thicker and longer, which was one of the findings of the previous studies, but it doesn't cause the regrowth or stimulation of dormant follicles. But this study did show that Minoxidil combined with RU58841 is a significant treatment combination, and it also shows that the two can be mixed together and still introduce significant results. So there's no like counteracting effect of both, and that's why you see them commonly used together. So from 1998 to around 2004, RU58841 was passed around a few pharmaceutical companies via a series of mergers and acquisitions. It ended up at a place called Proscalia, also known as Prostracan, and at this stage it was renamed to PSK 3841. Now, Prostracan conducted 2 human clinical trials, a phase 1 and a phase 2. The phase 1 lasted 4 weeks and the second lasted 6 months. For the phase 1 clinical trial, the company released a statement on their old website that it had no systemic androgenic activity, no systemic anti-androgenic activity, and it had good general tolerance. Then they were excited about this result and conducted a phase 2 study for androgenic alopecia and also observed no systemic anti-androgenic activity, and also noted an increase in net hair count. According to another statement that they made at a business conference, the increase in net hair count was comparable to that of finasteride. And by the way, this is with no anti-androgenic activity. For them to determine if any systemic anti-androgenic effect was observed, they would have to test for testosterone, DHT, luteinizing hormone, and they probably would have tested prostate-specific antigen or PSA, and also general body weight and organ health. So there we go. That's everything, every study there is about RU58841. The main question that arises is, why weren't these studies actually published? And I think there are a couple of reasons for this. I don't think it's anything to do with safety concerns or efficacy. If you guys want me to do a separate video on why exactly these studies weren't published, I'll do that for you. So just comment below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.